What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Hall of Nerds podcast. I'm Nate.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Carson.
I'm Mac.
And as you can see, today we are joined by a very special guest, acclaimed writer, one of our favorites, the one and only Jeremy Adams.
Hello.
Yes, he is here. Yes, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for taking the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we said, we're big fans, in particular, of your current Green Lantern run.
That's awesome.
We've really been enjoying that. So we wanted to start off the episode with just a fun little segment of where we're just going to go and ask you a couple of different random characters from multiple different fictions and everything and see what core of the Lantern Corps you think they would be in, which ring you think they would get and all that kind of stuff.
All right. I'm in.
So who wants to start us off?
I can start.
You're about to name us something that I don't know. Watch, it's gonna be like my kids telling me something. They'll be like, "Don't you know this?" And I'll be like, "I know."
We tried to keep them pretty
Okay,
popular.
all right.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
I'm ready.
All right. So starting off, I just want to do an easy one. Spider-Man.
Oh, I put him in the Wally West category, so I say Hope. I say Blue.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I that's what I was assuming too. But he could definitely. I could see you thinking he could go the Will way.
What if I was just like Red?
Red. Maybe currently.
Only in the black suit.
Yeah.
He's like, MJ is right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Where would you put Spawn? Spawn?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is hard for me because there's a part of me that thinks Will just because, but I would say I'm going to say Yellow because he to me he was the scariest guy. But like I love I'm also oh man that's tough. But I have a side note of Will just because I remember reading Spawn when it came out and then when it showed the timer of like I don't know where he is in continuity. I don't know what's going on now with Spawn, but like when I was growing up and you realize, oh crap, he can only use so much of his power before he gets damned, you know?
Mhm.
I think the will of him coming back and like doing that as a hero and stuff is cool. But he's scary as hell if he's done right.
Yeah.
So he probably causes people to crap their pants more than once, you know?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, I'll go. Where do you think Red Hood would go?
Oh, that's Red. It's
That's
Red,
right.
not just because he's Red Hood. I think Jason's got a lot of anger issues.
Yes,
That's fair.
fair enough.
So I think he's keeping it at bay, and it's interesting. Is he still killing people in continuity?
They don't. DC's very back.
They don't.
and
They
forth
don't.
with Red Hood. Yeah, it's like
It's like
He's-
trying to make a soft
Occasionally.
Punisher. You're like, I don't know. Like,
he's very. I think right now he's very on Batman's side post Gotham War, and he's kind of like, okay, I won't kill anybody.
and we're just gonna like
Yeah.
kill people. Like,
Yeah, pretty much.
As a
much.
Red Hood fan, I've been kind of begging for more Red Hood content.
yeah.
But-
I mean, if I would just have him killing people. Like put him in Batman. Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
Because I think if you put them in the moral stance of like the Punisher, you're like, well, they're bad people, you know?
Yeah, very true. There's a lot of people who argue that. So
Yeah, I mean, but we're talking fictional sense. But you
Of
know,
course.
I love that Batman's like, no, you know, I'm gonna keep putting the Joker back in Arkham. But I totally see and he keeps breaking out and killing people. Like I would like to see that juxtaposition a little bit, though. I understand it sullies the hero-ness of that character.
definitely. Well, first one I want to ask you is kind of a four-parter.
Yeah.
TMNT,
Four-part.
the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh gosh. Is there a pizza core somewhere?
New core.
It's funny. I just showed my daughters the 80s cartoon for the first time, and they were like, "This is great."
That's
You know?
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It is great.
They're all wildly hopeful. I'm gonna throw them all in blue too. Blue
I
is
like it.
Defunct, like they're happy, they're go lucky. You know, maybe they're aloof. You know,
I like that. I like that. All on the same team.
yeah. You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any one of them that's really going to be like instilling fear? They're always just, and it also what version of the turtles we're talking about, right? But I'm always the 80s turtle guy. So I'm like, well, they're kind of fun. So
Yeah, the
they're
animated
not
series,
instilling
agreed.
fear, they're not angry, you know?
Before
Yeah.
Raph was all edgy and
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up, I have Harry Potter.
Harry Potter himself. Okay.
Yes.
So I feel like Gryffindor is analogous to Green, but if we all know, Harry had the chance to be in Slytherin. I think, listen, I'm putting him in red because, like,
I
again,
like it.
Oh,
angry son of a, like, he's all, but like,
Yeah.
He is
serious.
mad.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would be
I like that.
angry.
Yeah.
I'd be like, it's time to show the Dursleys what's happening.
I like that. Yeah, I can agree.
All right. Next up, we have Mark Grayson, Invincible.
I'll put him in green. I'll put him in
Okay.
green. Yeah, he's a cool hero. Just the willpower not to lose it after, his dad and whatever, screwing up girlfriend situations,
All right. I have the strongest character in the DC universe, Jimmy Olsen.
Hufflepuff. Wait, no. Okay, green. He's a Sorrow Lantern. No. I would say, I mean, he's got to be blue as well. Well, I was saying blue, but I think he's hopeful, but I don't know. Maybe he's compassionate. Maybe he's part of Indigo Tribe. Let's just go with that.
Nice. I like
Like
that.
it.
Yeah. This one, I couldn't decide where I think you would go, so I'm really curious on what you would think. Blade.
Blade. Oh my gosh. No, Blade to me is firmly in the yellow category. Because
Very understandable.
Again, it's like Wesley Snipes' Blade, where you're just like, oh crap, that's terrifying. He's just gonna,
Yeah.
kill somebody as a day walker. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very true.
All right. My next one is a little bit of a two-parter. I have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Kevin Hart.
The Rock, what The Rock said, what a version of Rock. We're talking like WWE Rock, not like
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Rock bottom, people's elbow Rock, the people's champion.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll put him in red.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. Like when he really got. Nah, wait, I don't know. Stone Cold's more red. I put Rock in like. That's tough. That's a tough one. Let's throw him in green. I'll just put him in green.
Green.
Toss him in green.
Fair enough.
Hart. You said Bret Hart, right?
No, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart.
I don't know. He's a scary guy. Let's just put him in yellow.
I like it. I can see it actually.
Like really pissed, or like if McMahon has done something to him, it's like,
I can see it.
All right. And my last one, we have the guy from Fortnite, Dr. Doom.
the guy from Fortnite. I mean, what's so sad is there's so many kids that think that. So,
Yeah.
Victor Von Doom. He's a ruler. He's kind of got Sinestro vibes. Let's put him into yellow as well.
Okay, and for my last one, everyone wants to know what core would Jeremy Adams be in?
No, I'm firmly in the blue.
Heck
Love
yeah.
it. Awesome.
I'm a
Awesome.
pretty hopeful guy,
Yeah.
Love it.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
you got to be to right.
I'd
Wally
like
West
to
and-
say
I've
myself.
got to
Yeah.
be, because every time I want to do something and I try to do it, and then I get my spirits crushed by people above me, and I'm like, I got to start over.
I mean, like Wally West is probably the character that's been through some of the worst stuff in DC. So it's
I
like
know.
you got to have a lot of hope to bring him out of that.
I feel like recently, especially because there's been random corners of the internet that have tried to tell me how mid my run was, and that's fine. But one of the big criticisms was like, oh, he's just so happy and everything's fine. And I'm like, if that's what you think about Wally West, then I absolutely did my job.
Yeah.
He's been through enough.
That's very true.
What I wanted to do is to make you like, oh, he's great, everything's good, because that one guy was abused.
Because Tom
Yeah.
Taylor gets those same
Yeah.
criticisms about his Nightwing, but I feel like those are two characters that you need like hopefulness and like
Yeah.
bring him his
Yeah,
delight.
I think you have to like the way I look at it generally in comics and characters is like, where's that pendulum swing happening? And then I want to go on the opposite side of that pendulum swing, and I'm not saying it was me. I'm just saying that like after the Wally West run, it was like everybody had a family again, and it was like that's cool. And while that was happening, they had put me on Green Lantern, and everybody was focusing on legacy characters, and I thought, oh, this is a great chance to focus on a veteran character like Hal, and just kind of like talk about specifically there was an issue with him and Barry talking about what it's like to be kind of the old men in this, not old men, but just seeing all these legacy characters step up, and where does that leave them?
That's my favorite issue personally.
Oh,
I
cool.
love that issue.
I am.
Oh, good.
I'm a big Barry Allen fan, so I'm a big fan of that issue as well.
I'm actually surprised that they have. I would kill to do a Barry Allen series. I'm surprised that they haven't.
Yes,
Wait, you
please.
kill him?
I think he'd kill
Barry
to
Allen?
do it.
Okay, one at a time.
Oh, I said you would kill Barry Allen.
Would I kill Barry Allen?
Yeah.
No.
Oh.
I think
Getting way too excited for that, Brandon.
I think I know you were like
Yeah.
lusting.
Yeah, he wants that bad.
No, I don't want him to die.
I do a Wally book, and I think you can do a Barry book that's totally different. I think Barry as the CSI detective guy is a cool. Like you could do a cool book that way. I never got a chance to really mess with Barry like that. I'm doing a World's Finest where I get a little bit of Barry, but like
Yes.
I like a guy that's a little, to me, and the way I write him is he is detective, but he's kind of a hyper focused detective because he's moving around. It's almost like when you play Arkham Asylum and you like little things are like coming up.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
I expect him to like just kind of like take in a bunch of information, and I think that could play really cool detective stuff. And he's not at least the way I write Wally is like he's got a family. I was pushing Wally into like Fantastic Four realm, and I think Barry's not that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Would I have brought Barry back? Absolutely not. But I think he's back. So like,
Yeah.
if you kill him again, everybody's gonna be like, aha, sure. Like, you can't kill Superman again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair. No one really dies in comics.
No one will believe it. Yeah.
Well, before we hop into the questions, we had one more quick little segment for you.
Sure.
Your huge Green Lantern run going on right now. It's amazing. We're all loving it. So we were wondering if you could rank the 9 Earth Lanterns in terms of your favorite.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so Guy Gardner's obviously number one.
All right.
That's fair.
I'm a big Guy Gardner fan. I really am. I'm a big Guy Gardner fan.
That's awesome.
I don't like again, I get internet flack for different things, or like I'm seeing like oh, people like the character progression of certain characters, like people love that Damien's no longer the assassin, and he's I'm like, I kind of like that he killed a bunch of people. I kind of like that. But Guy's reformed a little bit. He's not as sexist or whatever, but like also that was hilarious,
Yeah.
He was
Totally.
kind of like, I don't know, one of my favorite movies in the world is Big Trouble in Little China, and he always reminded me of Kurt Russell's character in that, which is like
Totally.
to him he is like the central character in the DC universe, so
Oh yeah.
I think he's really, really funny. But so to me, if I'm like trying to objectively rank everything, which is very hard for me to do. Well, no, screw it. I'm just gonna do what I think.
Yeah.
I think Guy Gardner's number one. I think Kyle's number two. I like Kyle a great deal.
All right.
Love Kyle.
I think Kyle. It's weird. There's so many Green Lanterns. Everybody gets put on the back burner a lot. I really. It's like I don't even think Hal's the most interesting guy, even though I'm writing him and I'm trying to make him more interesting to me. So let's see. Guy, Kyle, John Stewart is kind of the GOAT, but I also think that it's because of Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, that is very fair.
And I like others, but I almost think he's too confident now. So I'm not gonna make them 3. I'm gonna put Jessica Cruz as 3
Okay,
because
nice.
I
Love Jessica.
really love Jessica Cruz and how she does things. I kind of love I like how they put it together with like, oh, she can overcome fear, and some of that stuff is interesting to me. The handicap turned powers is cool. Okay, so now I should put Hal or John. I'm gonna put John, and then I'm gonna put Hal, and then who's left? Simon and Joe, right?
Simon, Joe, Kelly, and Alan.
Okay. Well, okay. All right. Hold on a second. Alan was one of my favorites. It's interesting. I've been putting Alan in my book. I don't know if I was allowed, and I don't think I'm going to be able to again. But I really like him as part of the mythology of Green Lantern.
Oh yeah.
So, all right. So what did I say? I said Guy, Kyle, Jessica, and then
John, Hal.
I said Hal, right?
John, then Hal. Yep.
John, then Hal, and then I'll put Alan, and then I'll put Kelly, and then I'll put Simon. And the only reason is, and people are gonna be mad at me, they'll be like, "How dare you put Simon back at the end?" And I'm like, we've got plans for both of them, and I actually think they're both. If you read Jeff Thorne's run, you saw that there was this wonderful relationship that blossomed between those two.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you talk to me in a couple months, I think that they will be much higher on the list. But I think right now, especially what Morgan and I are doing at Lantern Corps, is I think that Kelly and Simon haven't been as explored as maybe I want them to be, to make me really grab a hold of them. But if you stick around enough in a Jeremy Adams written book, it becomes a cast of thousands. So, it's like I always like digging into the characters and trying to make them interesting to me. Like Wallace West, who I start calling Ace in my book, I couldn't, I like him in Josh's book, but I just didn't know. I wanted to write him so that I liked him, and having him be the straight, like the straight man to Wally's insanity worked for me. And I was like, oh, I get what this character is now. And then seeing him interact with Bart, I was like, even better. Like they're both these poor nutcases, like he's trying to just keep it all together and everybody's crazy. Like that was like, oh, I understand who this character is and I totally get it because that's me and everybody else is crazy, So yeah, Simon and Kelly are near the end.
And then you'd put Joe last?
Oh, shoot. Dude, this makes me look really bad.
They're all great.
Yeah, I mean, just Simon, Joe, and Kelly just haven't had a lot.
I put Joe last. You can't tell me she's the greatest detective of all time. You guys I'm going to be in trouble on Reddit. I can feel it.
No.
Glasses. Yes, I'm putting Joe last for now. Oh man, I'm a dead man. Thanks.
Just as like a bonus, where would you throw Kilowog in there? He's not an Earth Lantern, but
oh man, Kilowog's like smack dab in the middle because you got to have that kind of.
I love Kilowog.
I love Kilowog too. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
All right, you guys are writing stuff down. This is scary.
Oh, I was just keeping the order in case we were like going to put it on the
order. Jeremy Adams, blah blah blah.
This is what he said.
Typical white writer. Blah, blah.
Oh man.
I mean, so much of that is because like we are creatures of nostalgia, and a lot of those characters are newer.
Yeah, and they just haven't had a lot of like content.
And trying to catch up on a lot of those characters, and also try to figure out, like I said, why should I like this? Why should I like these guys? Besides the fact that one of them carries a gun, I need to figure out what attaches me to a lot of characters. It's like I mean that's the funny thing. Like it's the weird thing about being a writer and being a fanboy. Like when I was writing The Flash, and they said I tried to get Ted Kord because I'm a huge Ted Kord nut in The Flash, and they said no, you can't use him. So they said. I don't know if they mentioned or I said like, hey, can I use Mr. Terrific? And to me, Mr. Terrific was one-dimensional in a way. Like I was like, oh, he's a Vulcan. Like I was like, oh, he's so blah blah blah. Yeah. And I was like, what if I made him this like had tons of swagger, but also like super super rich, and even on my desktop, I have a list of like all the companies he owns, and I love the idea that he had a potato chip company and a streaming service, and like everything. he was funneling all that money into his labs, and then it was like, then I got like really attached to him, and then I was like, I'm bringing his kid back, and it's like, oh,
Nice.
you know, and it was like there was a moment where it was like, I don't like, how do I make this character? I was, oh no, he's Buckaroo Banzai, man. He's this guy that's just doing crazy things, and
Love that.
he's a little more competent than everybody else, which I thought was kind of interesting.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well then, I guess last thing we could dive into some questions.
Sure.
Oh, I can kick it off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have an Aquaman book coming out.
I do.
Releases January 8th with
Right.
artist John Timms. Super excited because we haven't had an
Yes.
Aquaman book in like
So
40
excited.
years. And I was just wondering what you're most excited to explore in the upcoming Aquaman run.
The best way to put this is like, without spoiling anything, is like, it's definitely not what I think everybody thinks it's going to be, and that's interesting to me. But I'm kind of exploring the humanity of Arthur, and I mean this like, I think for me, you know, you're as a writer, you're trying to figure out where the holes and different things you can explore because everybody's done so much, right? And this guy really lived his life above ground, above water, you know, for most of his life. And then it was like, oh, I'm a superhero. Now I'm a king. And I think sometimes people just write him as like this natural king and this natural, like he's been underwater the whole time. And I'm like, no, I think he's ridden his bicycle. You know, I think that like he's enjoyed, you know, scraping his knee. I think that he likes food that's dry, you know, there's different things that I think that he probably, the humanity of like, if I lived underwater, I'm sure it would be cool. But also, I think it would be, I would be like, you know, I need to go eat a hamburger. Like, you know,
Yeah, totally.
Keep him connected to the land.
I
Yeah.
would probably miss a lot, you know, like I went to Japan once and it was like after 3 days of sushi, I was like, I need beef in my mouth like tomorrow.
Totally.
So I think it's just kind of like pushing on that dimension of him a little bit in so much that like I think there's going to be humanizing him in a way and taking him out of his element and what does it mean to be a king and what does it mean to be a dad and what does it mean to be a husband and all that stuff. And also you know, this series has a lot of stakes to it. It has a big turn at the end of the first issue that will propel us on this journey with Aquaman and yeah, boy, it's hard. I'm like I'm waiting to be assassinated by some like DC, you know,
Kevin
like
Feige.
like you said too much, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah,
man, that's exciting.
I'm excited about it. And John Timms, I met him for the first time in New York Comic Con. He's such a nice guy, and his out really quick. I've been very lucky with the artists that I've been able to work with over the years, and only the couple years that I've been doing this. So I've been really grateful. But his art's really, really spectacular. He takes it to another level. So it's gonna be weird, man. It's like it has a very Conan the Barbarian flair with like other stuff going on.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited. And the way you just described it makes me even more excited.
All right. Well, you know, don't write me hate mail.
Don't let me down. Yeah. No.
I got a lot of people that were just like, oh,
I'm very easy to please.
What do you do with this character? And I'm thinking in my head, nothing. Like,
yeah, I was never a huge Aquaman fan, and then I actually read him.
Like, if anybody knows me, it's like if you stick around long enough, I'm sure everybody will show up and they'll have a giant part to play. You know.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. Well, my first question kind of mentioned it a little bit. Is there an artist you have yet to work with that you would want to?
I'm like, yeah. Yeah. There's too many, man. There's
the top three.
I mean, like, I know this
currently working. Yeah, currently
I know
working.
this will never happen, but my boss, Jim Lee.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Greatest artist of all time.
Like I would like I've met and been very acquaintance-ish with Rob Liefeld, but I would be like, dude, I'll write anything for you. I just want that experience.
Mhm.
But if I'm talking about like Patrick Gleason's a good friend of mine, and I would love to work with him. I think
That
that's
dude is awesome.
super rad. Gosh, it's hard because now I'm obsessed. I love Mitch, but like he's taken. Mitch Jared's is like taken off the board, but he's such a good guy. It would be fun to work with him. I'm trying to think. Oh, Amanda Connor, obsessed.
I love Amanda Connor.
I have a big Amanda Connor, and when Gray, Palmiotti, and Connor were doing Power Girl, was just so awesome. She's done amazing stuff. I have a great print of Supergirl that I bought from her when my daughter was born, and she's like Kevin McGuire. Like they can do comedy in such a way that I would kill. I would kill to work with Amanda Connor. I don't know if she does. I think they do mostly just their own stuff interior wise. But I would love to do Amanda Connor. Gosh, who else? Jorge Jimenez, like all
Yes,
the
everyone.
Yeah.
yeah. But like, if you're like, I said to Jim Lee the other day, like I've only talked to him a couple of times, and we were at this unveiling of a John Stewart statue.
Oh yeah, that was so
Oh, I saw
cool.
that on Twitter. Yeah.
I nerded out so hard.
That was so cool. Yeah.
I couldn't even form any words when I talked to Jim Lee for the first time. I said, I like your art, and then I just walked away.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. I said to him, I go, I know we haven't talked very much. And he goes, no, we talked in San Diego. And I'm thinking, he remembers that,
Yeah.
He's like, I am such a huge fan. Like, not just the X-Men books. I love Divine Right. And he looked at me like and I was like, I did, like Wildcats. I mean, like Mark Silvestri, I think he's unbelievable. Cyberforce was a huge thing for me growing up too. And man, there's too many. There's too many, dang. And there's too many coming up. Like I did, there's this thing called Fractured Spectrum with this guy V Ken, that he's unbelievable too. So it's been fun. I never want Zermanico to leave. I never want Fernando to leave. So like, I'd be very happy if they would if I could bribe them to stay with me forever. And Will
Oh yeah,
and I hit it off too. He does Flash Gordon, and he's just awesome as well.
definitely. Yeah. Everyone. There's too many amazing
Everyone.
current. Yeah, too many
I want to
amazing
have
current
the
artists.
Infinity Stones of artists.
Yes.
I promise to let you do whatever you want. That's kind of what I tell people. I was like, what do you want to do? I'll
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
I was at a convention. I was talking. We were at like some bar afterwards, and I was just like, yeah, I'm just trying to write things that I want my artists to be excited about doing. And I would just hate to write something with just people talking every page. And Kevin McGuire's like, that's all I want to do. I was like, oh,
Well, that's exactly what I want to do.
Yeah. And then I quickly badgered him into doing a backup in Green Lantern, which that was really fun.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
My first question is, do you plan on building up to a Green Lantern event?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Morgan and he came over to my house the other day, and we just kind of like, this is what it looks like this year, in both Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps. I think, the events of the United Planets and Theros and Baron and all that stuff is wrapping up next issue. And then you'll see the new status quo in the Green Lantern universe, and then it'll set the stakes for what's coming in the next year. And I think that'll.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Very exciting. Yeah.
Like I want it to be like when I was reading Green Lantern, it was Jeff Johns and Tomasi, and it was like I would bounce back and forth between both books all the time. And I'm hoping that would be the case. It's interesting because like I wasn't planning on writing the Green Lantern Corps. They asked me to write it with Morgan, and which I'm very grateful to do. But it'll be interesting. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I think we
awesome.
have a good, so we'll see.
Heck yeah.
Sweet.
All right. What inspires you or inspired you to start writing?
Oh my gosh, dude. All right. The dark psychology of this is this. Like, my dad drew some comics. I was somewhat aware of it as a kid, but he had drawn some cat. First, the only thing I knew about at the time was he had drawn this book called Ghosts for DC Comics. So like comic books were around me, and my parents were divorced very early on. And I'm sure if we sat on a couch and paid hundreds of dollars an hour, we would find out that like, hey, my dad liked martial arts and my dad liked comic books and my dad liked movies. And so therefore I wanted to be like my dad. So I like those things too, because I didn't see him as much or whatever. At a certain point, it becomes your own, obviously. And I, my dad and my relationship was pretty estranged. And like I found out years later, it was only until I was working on Young Justice that he had written Captain Atom in the 80s, or not written, but drawn some Captain Atom in the 80s for Greg Weisman and then further.
Wow.
And I had no idea. So, but I think he total DC books, he had done like 12 books or something. So
wow.
then it was like, so that was a huge part of like, I'm sure, uh, being introduced to comics. And then my dad liked comics. I was, there's no way around that. Oh yeah, freaking comics. And then you read it, and you're just like, yeah, comic books,
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
I was like, I was at like it was this like charity party, and for this, like helping out this charity, and I didn't know the person who hosted it bought some of my comics and put them in these bags, okay, and it was along with some other people's stuff, other things that people had done in that group. And I went to church like on Sunday or something, and I had all these parents go, "Oh, my kids found these comics of yours in the bag, and they're freaking out, and they like totally want to get comic books." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, that's right," because sometimes I think that I think huge problem comic books have is just not getting them into people's hands.
100%.
Like,
Yeah.
a kid like me, when I was a kid, it's like they were everywhere. So I'd read them and I'd be like, "This is the greatest thing ever,"
Yeah, like once you convince them to pick it up, that's when it'll
That's
stick.
it. That's it. And I also, I mean, especially when I was writing the Flash, like I wrote that thing for retailers to be able to point people to. It didn't matter who you were, you could go to that book. You weren't going to be offended. You were just going to have fun, and it was just going to be an exciting time or whatever. The other stuff is fine. Like you can have dark comics, you can have light comics, whatever. But I wanted something that was kind of in the middle Bronze ages, and that's probably more my personality type, anyways. But anyways, these kids like lost their minds. So if my dad wasn't around loving comics, would I still love comics? I don't know, probably, because I'm a nerd, and it's like you read it and you get hooked. You're like, "That's Batman, holy crap!"
Yep.
So I don't know, but that's probably obviously where it started. And my brother was into it. My brother loved to draw, and I would never have the patience to draw. I would get through how to draw comics the Marvel way, and I would just get like, oh gosh, and that's probably when I went into writing. The patience level was not there.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Yeah. Do we have time for one more round of questions?
Why? What's happening after?
Oh no, I was just checking the time. I didn't want to.
We wanna be- we wanna
Okay,
be-
I just didn't want to keep you so long.
If you want me, so
Okay, heck yeah.
Awesome.
So I'm a huge fan of all of your Flash stuff. It was the reason I got back into Wally West. I read the Wally West Returns and the story where he was like jumping through different speedsters' bodies, and it was so cool. And how you linked it back to Heroes in Crisis, all great. But I was just wondering, like, I mean, you kind of answered. What was your favorite part about writing the Flash? And given the opportunity, are there any more Flash stories you'd like to tell?
Yeah, my favorite part about writing the Flash was that it came. I mean, it was my first real shot. I had done a couple of those future states, and then they just handed me the Flash. Like I was like, "You idiots, let me in the door," and it was such a. I just can remember that call so vividly because I know I wasn't the first person they asked to do the Flash. Like I'm pretty sure they asked my friend Tim Sheridan to do it. He was like, "Nah," and I, and they asked me to do it, or they said, "Do you have ideas?" And I go, "Yeah. What if we did like Quantum Leap with the Flash, blah blah blah." And then they're like, "Yeah, that's better than what we got. So you get the Flash." And I was like, "Holy crap!" And no one knew me from Adam, right? I had done all these animated movies and I worked in Supernatural, but like no one had clue who I was. And I just remember going on. There used to be. I don't think he does it anymore. It was a YouTube show called Lost in Comics, and I remember pleading the case, like, "I promise you, Wally's gonna be okay if I get to write on it. Like it'll be fine." So I fell in love with that book because it was my first chance to try some stuff, like the Dr. Fate issue, or I wrote an issue with my daughter.
That was so cool.
Yeah, it was so much fun. And like Omega Bandman, and like Gold Beetle, and just being able to just go crazy and make a book that had no boundaries was really, really fun. And I found myself like getting weirdly emotionally attached to these characters, to the point that like when they told me I was off the book, I was like, well, are the kids gonna be okay? Like I was just like completely just to this day. I'm no, anyways. So yeah, was there other stuff? 100%. I had a great probably 6-issue or more arc after. So I did 1 Minute War that did really, really well. And then but I knew they took me off the book before 1 Minute War had come out, like a couple weeks before 1 Minute War, the first one came out. And then that did really well. 1 Minute War did really well. And you can tell the last couple issues I'm like rushing through some things, I'm like, I'm gonna bring back a young John Kent and young Damien. Like I'm gonna bring, I was like, what can I cram it? And I also thought, they're never gonna let me write again. I mean, they told me I could write Green Lantern. I was like, yeah, that'll last a couple issues, but I had an arc that involved all those characters, and I left a back door, so hopefully someday I can go back and tell that story, which was like the Omega Bandman, Gold Beetle, Wally, Mr. Terrific, Starship Enterprise, how they get back home, I think is a crazy good banana story. And I really wanted to do that one. But yeah. And I had more with the mayor and other stuff that I wanted to pull out, So yeah, there you go.
Heck yeah. That's awesome.
Sweet. Well, my next question would be, are you reading any current ongoing comic books? And if so, do you what are your favorites?
Yeah, I am. I really like the G.I. Joe stuff Josh is doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just started reading Energon.
Yeah. I actually like Tom's first issue of Detective.
Mhm.
I do really like Absolute Batman. It's funny. It's like I'm predisposed to be like, I'm not gonna like this. This is, and then suddenly it's like the Batmobile's a giant truck. I'm like,
crap. Yeah.
I remember reading that first issue. Mr. Snyder sent it to me. I'll call Mr. Snyder. I don't know. I'm not close enough. Scott sent it to me. And I remember going like, oh man, this really does have kind of like Batman Year One vibes. And I thought it was really, really, really cool. I think, on the DC side, I'm trying to consume everything because I want to be up to date. So, Mark Waid stuff, whether it was World's Finest or now Justice League or whatever, like I'm trying to stay up to date. And I like Batman stuff too. On the Marvel side, it's weird. It's like I definitely probably grew up with more Marvel books and read more Marvel than anything, but it's kind of, I'm not going to say impenetrable. It's really hard to figure out where to get back into different things.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I tried to get back into the Krakoa era, and I was like, yeah, this is cool, but like also I don't want to read a Wikipedia page entry. Like I'm
yeah,
totally. I remember I was having dinner with Zeb Wells and somebody else, and I was talking. I think it was the Marauders. Did he write the Marauders?
Hellions.
Hellions. Yeah.
And I was talking. I totally forget that he wrote it because I don't pay attention to that as much as I probably should. And I was at dinner, I was talking about how much I love Hellions. I thought Mr. Sinister was a crack up, and like I thought it was so funny. And he looked at me really weird. He goes, I write that, right? I'm like, oh, thank goodness. Like I didn't like badmouth something in front of him.
Yeah.
It was but I'm a big fan of that stuff. But yeah, it's hard because there's a lot of newer stuff that I'll like pick up. I'll like read, Jim Zub's doing, Conan, which I think is cool, or like I'll read Space Ghost or, different things. The Marvel stuff, I'll pick up stuff every once in a while. But like I said, it's really hard for me to figure out, like I was a big X Titles guy, and I was also a big Captain America guy. And even when I go into Marvel Unlimited, I'm like, I'm not sure where I'm supposed to start because they do go back to number ones really quick.
Yeah.
So, I read heavily Brubaker's run in Captain America and then kind of fell off. I don't know when that was. I know where it was financially because I was poor So then it's like I'll pick up, and then even Iron Man and certain things, I'm like, what's going on now? Like I'm trying to figure out the status quo to get into it, because I told Casada this at a convention. I was like, your run as editor in chief from like not just Marvel Knights, but like when they did Civil War. I remember reading Civil War going like, oh my gosh, they hate each other. How are you gonna fix this? And then it was like Secret Invasion. I'm like, oh my gosh, people are Skrulls. You know, like I was
Oh
like,
yeah.
And then it rolled right into World War Hulk, and I was like, like I was losing my mind. It was such a golden age. And then on the DC side, it was like Countdown to 52 and all that stuff. And I was locked in, you know. But yeah, so those are some of the books I'm reading. And I try to keep up currently with DC. But the Marvel stuff is harder to keep up with. And also, I know this is weird. This is gonna sound weird, but like since my job is kind of like writing and reading all day, it can sometimes be hard to read more.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes sense.
But I found myself kind of collecting a lot more again, and I'm reading like a way too many. I'll just pick up issues. Like I have a stack here that I was like at a store, and it was like a bookstore. You know how it is. I like see those old stores. I'm like, yeah, well, I'll pick up some Green Lanterns, or like what do I pick up? I pick up the Starjammers X-Men. I was like, yeah, let's
oh, that's awesome.
Or like Firestorm #1. I was like,
oh, nice,
okay.
nice.
I got the John Stewart collector.
Oh, nice. That's what they based the statue off of, right?
Yeah, and then I was at the Skybound thing, and they had this GI Joe.
Oh, sweet.
That's sick.
I also, this is nerdy, but like I have a nephew that is one of me, and I asked him like, what is his favorite hero, and he said Moon Knight, which is a great answer because I love Moon Knight. So I got him like 3 #1s. I got him that #1.
Nice.
That #1. And then I got the original that #1.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Wow. Watch it, because that'll be a problem. But that's his Christmas present. But I end up
that's
buying
awesome.
them, and then I'll like flip through them. It's so much of I'm trying to convince DC to let me do one cover every month, because they always do like 1,000 variants. It's like, can we just do a Silver Age variant, or like a that kind of like, no, they're gonna die, like that type of variant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
My favorite, and I want to do one every time, because those covers inspire me half the time. Art inspires me. I got all this like D&D art and fantasy art and comic art books that I'm just like, you go through and you just get excited about that stuff.
I'm playing my first D&D campaign right now.
Shut up.
Yes,
Really?
I had my 3rd session today. I fought some orcs. We set them on fire. It was awesome. Yeah.
That's awesome. I have a friend of mine that is a comic writer. He never had done D&D, and he did it. And then he called me. He's like, I never like. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I have never laughed more than in a D&D match.
It's so fun.
Game. And they're like, well, how long did it last? I go, I don't know. I was on a campaign for like 4 years.
It sounds awesome. I've never tried it either, but I've just never had a group. I've never had a group.
You got a group right here.
I guess, well, we have this group, but we're not together.
I just took my girls and my nephews and my niece on a campaign, and they're young, and I did a modified one that was like going to Santa's castle or whatever.
That's awesome.
Like a whole whatever, and they dug it. Part of it is just the character creation is so much fun. And then when I moved to LA, I ended up playing D&D with a ton of the people that wrote the modules, which has a good and bad effect. It's like you want to do something like, I just want to shoot them in the nuts with the crossbow, and they're like, no, in page 134, I'm like, tell me what I need to roll,
Yeah, that's funny. That makes sense.
All right. Well, my next question is, what is a character team that you would like to write in the future? Doesn't have to be DC.
Oh, it doesn't have to be DC.
Doesn't have to be.
I love teams. Everybody knows, because Travis Mercer and I tried to get a kind of Young Justice book going. I absolutely would kill to do a Young Justice book.
That would be awesome.
We need it.
I would even do a Teen Titans. I would do either of those, but I like New Warriors is the Marvel equivalent for me. That was a big deal. Outside of that, I mean, listen, the top of the hill is a Batman anything. So like if there was a team book that had Batman in it, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'd be great.
Very fair.
Yeah, like the younger team stuff would be really fun. I would kill to do GASA. I would kill to do Justice League and stuff. But
Yeah.
The younger stuff is there's more room for comedy that I definitely like. I think when you're doing something like Justice League, those are the big boy games, you know, which you have to be ready.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Definitely. I would love a Young Justice book. That would
I
be
would
awesome.
too.
Yeah.
That'd be
Are there
awesome.
any characters you put on your Young Justice team that like that haven't been put on the team before? Any ones that like interest you?
When Travis and I were trying to pitch something, it was Irie and Jay were definitely the top two in my mind.
Nice.
I wanted to put Quiz Kid in Fair Play, which is the
Ooh.
Quiz Kid is
Yeah.
the golden age that Jeff brought over, and Fair Play was Mr. Terrific.
Mhm.
And if you read my Jay Garrick book, writing them was really fun because they started playing off each other. It's like super intelligent. I also obviously I mean literally I was trying to backdoor build this thing in the Flash book like 100%. You know, Maxine, I think the story of how she's the avatar of the Red is a really great piece to put in there. But now Jeff brought like 26 kid characters back.
Yeah.
The idea behind it was that we would do those characters, and then every issue would rotate in other kid characters, so that like one would have a problem, then they would go help, you know. And Stephanie Brown was going to be kind of the person that tries to keep them not from killing each other, killing themselves.
That's awesome.
And so
that is cool.
You know, like the new twins, it's in Superman. Like I don't know much about them, but I would love to explore that and what we're doing with Kelly and Ellie in Green Lantern Corps and Green Lantern, I think is going to be interesting. So, yeah.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool. See, this is my hope is that like I become enough of a sure thing financially for DC that I get more power to do other weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like 12. What about this weird thing? Like, that's weird. My dream. You know? I can't tell you. There's like two in particular, like my dream projects, and every time I mention them to people that are above me, they look at me like, no one will buy that, and I'm like, I swear to you, I will sell it door to door, like, you know.
Well, we will buy it.
I appreciate that.
Yes, we will buy it. And everyone watching us, all of our fans.
Yeah.
There's a DC book, any book, but if there's a DC book with Jeremy Adams' name on it, buy it.
We need to get like a petition that's like, we will buy whatever he writes that's weird. Like, you know, like look, there's 100,000 people. You can't say no now.
Yeah,
you
hey.
know what it is. And then I announce it. Everybody's like, oh, no.
Oh, never mind. 1 issue, 2 issues in, dropped. No.
Yeah,
No.
And then for my final question, I wanted to ask, what is your favorite con you've been to, or maybe experience that you've had at a con that you will never forget?
Oh my gosh. Meeting Frank Miller was a big deal. That was a lot.
You can only imagine, yeah.
Oh my gosh, you're Frank Miller, and he was super nice and super cool. But really, the real answer is the first time. So I've been going to San Diego Comic-Con for years as a fan, and like there's this one picture, this iconic picture when they announced like they gave everybody in the crowd a quarter owl's mask. I still have mine. I'm in that crowd.
Oh.
I was like, I was always at the DC panels 100% of the time, watching, praying that someday I'll be on the other side, never thinking it would happen. And then I started becoming an animation writer, and like they would premiere a lot of the movies that I wrote there at Comic-Con. So that was a totally different experience. And it was great. It was fun. But the minute I became a comic writer, it was like a totally different experience. And I had this weird experience the first time somebody said, "Hey, you're Jeremy Adams," was I had just watched a dude die like 10 feet away from me in the gas lamp at this ice cream shop. And the guy fell and hit his head, and they had to call like paramedics, and he was turning blue. And we're like, what is happening? They're doing like chest compressions, and we're just like, oh my gosh, it was so traumatic. They wheel him off in the ambulance, and he takes off, and I'm sitting there, and I remember because Leonard Maltin was there too, him and his wife, and I don't know, he's a movie reviewer, he's eating ice cream, and this guy's dead, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm totally freaked out by it, and not 5 minutes later, I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I can't believe that happened. This guy goes, hey, you're Jeremy Adams, and I'm like, huh? You know, hey, could I get a picture? I'm like, sure. And I'm totally
I can literally only imagine.
I'm also like trying to like comprehend that somebody is
asking
like,
for a picture. Yeah.
Like
internet, please do your thing. Find that photo for us, please. So
I know,
Yeah,
knew who I was, and he wanted a picture, and I was like, "That's weird," you know, like, and it's like,
yeah,
So
wow,
that was
That's
like the
crazy.
weirdest, and that's been weird. It's been weird to because being a writer, you're a black hole of self-doubt. So like having people like come in and, hey, we really like your stuff. I'm like, you're all liars, but okay. Tell me more, but the other
That
part
is
of it,
crazy.
so like the first year was weird because it was a lot of fans were very kind about the Flash run, and then and then it just became weird because it would be like well-established names, people that I grew up reading and stuff would be like, oh, Jeremy, blah blah blah. I'm like, you know my name, I'm cool.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. Yeah,
like,
that's
oh! I can't believe they
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I can only
That's true.
imagine.
Yeah, it's crazy because my favorite story to tell about Comic-Con is actually meeting you because
No.
I had walked up and I was like, Tom Taylor was sitting there talking to you at your booth, and I walked up to Tom Taylor and I was like, "You're my favorite writer." And then you were sitting right there and you went like, "Wow." And then we sat there and talked about like the Flash for like 30 minutes. It was awesome.
When was this?
This was New York like 2 years ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it was a while.
That was the first time I was in New York.
Oh really?
Yeah. Yeah, probably.
That was my first convention ever. It was super cool. And you told me to read Green Lantern, and then I went and picked up Green Lantern. So
well,
we had been telling him to read it.
yeah, they had been telling me.
Yeah, we were already reading it.
I'm a completionist, so I had to start. I've been starting at New 52 and reading everything to current. So I was like,
yeah, he's crazy.
I was working my way up to it, and then I finally got to your run.
Well, that's very kind. That's very kind. Yeah, it's hard because it's also like I'll meet people at conventions, and then you'll meet somebody like here on the Zoom, and it's like, oh, I kind of remember you, but it's also like, holy crap, it's hard.
You meet a lot of people.
Well, it's a lot of people, and I'm all, again, self-doubt, and it's also like, I'm not doing eye contact.
Totally. Sweet. Well, anyone else got any more questions?
I do have one last question.
Let's hear it.
Just one last question. Huge Green Lantern writer. What do you think about the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern movie?
I haven't seen it in many years. What's funny to me is like, on paper, it makes sense. It kind of makes sense to me, I guess. I mean, he played the Ryan Reynolds played Ryan Reynolds really well.
Very true.
Whatever guy. It's hard. It's a hard thing because I understand now, being on the other side, how making any movie is an impossible task. I just think that what Marvel did properly is like you could take everybody to that movie, and I feel like Green Lantern was like, this isn't for everybody. This is for boys from age blah 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 blah. And even then, I wanted to see boot camp on Oa, I wanted to see him get this power and not really know how to use it, and more of that. I wanted to see more of the sci-fi stuff probably, because that's interesting to me. But I know Guggenheim, who wrote it, who I love dearly. I didn't know that he is the one who created Thal Sinestro's first name, Thal. That came from that movie, which
I didn't
know
that.
I didn't know that.
Time it was ever done. And Ryan Reynolds met Blake Lively there, so that's cool. But yeah, I remember at the time being like, I do not like this movie. Like, I remember that. I don't think I went back and revisited it. if it's anything like anything else that I hated at the time, I'll probably go back and go, hey, that wasn't too bad. You know, like
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
definitely there's a lot of those movies that I've gone back and I've gone, well, that's not as bad as I thought it was. And there's a lot of movies I love I've gone back and go like, oh, that's not as good
Yeah.
as I read. And then there's movies that people tell me are terrible and I watch and I go, I really like that. So I don't know. I have terrible taste. I mean, anyone can tell you I have the worst taste. Like somebody told me, we were sitting there, and this is as I'm doing screenwriting, and they said like, what do you want to make? What movie would you want to make? I'm like, oh my gosh, Hard Target 3. I know exactly what it would be. And they're like, that's what you would want? Like, that's where your bar is? Like, you need to think higher. I go, yeah, but Van Damme and his daughter could just like kick ass, and like, you know, like they're just like, I like what I like, people. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Respect.
Awesome. Well, I think that's gonna go ahead and do it for this episode. We want to thank you so much for coming on,
thank you.
taking the time. It was a really good time, and I want to just give you a moment if there's anything you want to let any viewers know, books you're working on, some upcoming projects.
Aquaman.
Yes.
Yeah. Buy Aquaman. Let's show these people that fish people deserve sales. No.
Yes.
Aquaman, Flash Gordon again. I'm having a blast on Flash Gordon, and the Green Lantern titles are great. You know, again, so much of it is about fans being cool and like supporting me as a writer, which has been really great. And that's the only reason that I'm afforded the ability or the opportunity to do other books. And I think DC sees that, and they've said like, you know, oh, people like you. I'm like, really? You know?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, so it's very kind. It's very kind. So that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you. With that being said, thank you again. That's gonna do it for this episode of the Hollow Nerds podcast.
Make sure you come back next week for a brand new episode.
Nerd on.
You want to hit him with a nerd out, Jeremy?
All you got to do is just like nerd out and then do a little salute if you want to do that.
Nerd out.
Okay. Awesome.